All right, looks like I am live here on this beautiful online world. Hello, dear community, dear friends. This is Katerina. Just came back from the gym about an hour ago, and I felt in my heart to bring you just a few words about 100 or 1,000 ways that you can find joy every single day. And the one thing, one sure way to lose it. So I am been in a contemplation of the topic of joy for July as I am preparing to lead a mystical intensive for the mystery school that I'm currently facilitating. We're halfway through our mystical journey. We're studying the most ancient wisdom teachings. So we studied alchemy and the sacred technology of the heart and the initiation path and all these profound, profound topics. And July, what dropped in was the topic of joy. And joy has an incredible power to give us strength, to nourish our soul, and to open up a whole new world for us. And the joy, the thing about joy, sometimes it can feel like something, similar to extreme excitement or extraordinary happiness. But joy, from my experience, is a calmer energy, is this inner smile that never leaves. It's this capacity to be cheerful no matter what's going on around you, no matter what you are encountering, no matter what change comes and knocks at your door, no matter how you get to pivot and adjust and reinvent and innovate, you're able to maintain that inner smile. You're able to maintain that attitude of cheerfulness, right? And it's a choice. So in this transmission, I wanted to share with you just a few ideas. I don't have a lot of time, so it's not going to be a long teaching, just a few words. So if this message has found you, if you are guided to be here and to contemplate on the power of joy, is because you are ready to discover an incredible ability within yourself to tap into joy. You see, joy is what we're born with. And I feel like this is a major breakthrough idea that I'd like to share with you and the entire world for the rest of my life. We are born joyful beings. If you want proof of that, spend some time around a tiny baby. Look at the smile on their face when all their basic needs are met. They're fed, they're held, their diapers are not dirty. What do you see on their adorable face? You see two things. You see curiosity, a sense of wonder, and you see a smile, right? So we are born with joy. And progressively over time, we'll learn to disconnect from it. We'll learn to lose it. We'll learn to become bored with our life, bored with ourselves. We'll learn to get lost in the stories of the mental movie, and we step away from joy, right? So this is the number one thing, how we lose joy. We begin to step away from it. We begin to disengage with it. We begin to disconnect with that. But the reason I wanted to bring this message is that at any point you can remember, I was born joyful. Joy is my natural, original state. That's what your true consciousness, your true inner self is joyful. That smiling inner Buddha is within you, right? So this is who you really are at the core of your being. And 100 ways to find joy. Well, give yourself a playful experiment. I'm not going to even call it a challenge. We have enough challenges living in the modern world, right? We have enough boot camps. Entire life is like a boot camp. I invite you to give yourself an experiment. called 100 Ways of Joy. For the next 100 days, you wake up and you become a joy seeker. You begin, like, that's your first thing in the morning. Where can I attune to joy? How can I unlock that inner cheerfulness within me? Because I have that power. And I promise you, it will make everything different. You know, we are halfway through a very powerful year that has a potential to help us become wiser. It's a year of the snake, right? The gift of the snake is wisdom. Wisdom can only come from experience, right? You can gather beautiful knowledge from books. I'm a passionate reader. I read 5, 7 books simultaneously, right? I read for pleasure. I read for joy. And whatever I read, if I don't apply it, it's just dust on my mind. But if I take an idea that moves my soul and I'm gonna run towards application of it, I'm going to put it into my life. I'm going to experiment with it. So I invite you to try this, right? Don't believe anything I say, not in this live stream, not in any other live streams or classes or webinars. Don't believe anything I say. Experiment with what feels interesting, fascinating, like, oh my goodness, I never thought that I was born with joy. Joy is something that I already have within me. It simply got layered and layered and layered by what? Layers of dullness, layers of boredom, layers of disconnection. Because you see, to seek joy requires an effort from you and from me. It doesn't require effort to drift into dullness. It actually feels much easier to do nothing. You know, I'll give you a very, very simple example. Do you remember the days where you woke up and you just felt off? And you just decide to stay in bed, and you decide to not work out, you decide not to wear anything lovely, right? You just kind of like spent the day slouching. And maybe that's what you needed to recover your strength. But if you continue that, if you wake up next day and you do the same thing, and next day and you do the same thing, you become like an autopilot of melancholy, autopilot of sadness, autopilot of inertia. So and it feels easier to just continue to become more and more and more disengaged from aliveness. So to turn that around, you gotta apply effort, right? Saying, you know what? I can touch something within my soul that makes me feel alive, that makes me feel connected, that makes me feel like I want to live. I want to devote myself to living fully this one precious life that I have. You know, it always gives me a perspective why I consider myself a joy ambassador. That's, you know, like my title, my hidden title. Like when I go and I close this incarnation and I will complete with my physical expression, what I would love other people to remember me by is how much joy I have spread in the world. You know, being a joy ambassador, because joy lifts you up and it gives you a new perspective. Joy also helps you activate that hidden mechanism within your soul, that inner magnet that you begin to draw everything that you truly need for your life, for your genius to be expressed, for your creative work, right? Everything that you need, you can draw it to yourself through this beautiful inner mechanism called magnetism. Entire cosmos is held together through the law of magnetism. And you know where I have learned that from? From a very, very old book. Well, it's kind of like a wisdom manual called the I Ching. And it comes to us from ancient China, which was full of very wise people, sages. and they had a lot of time on their hands. They didn't have a lot of distractions of the modern world, so they spent days and weeks and years in nature, observing the patterns of nature and tracking every single little thing that they saw how nature operates. And they put their discoveries, the 64 ways of learning how nature moves through you and around you and with you, and they put it in a beautiful manual of living called the I Ching. And in that beautiful book of wisdom, it says the entire universe is held together by the power of magnetism, right? And the magnetism is another word for love. So if you remember this, this is what always helps me find true direction in life, what to focus on, what to dedicate myself to. And I say, okay, is this an expression of me as love in action? Is this my highest joy? Is this going to elevate everything I do because of the joyful energy I'm willing to bring to each moment? So 100 ways to tap into that powerful frequency. Remember the work of David Hawkins, a great luminary who left us a vibrational scale, right? He was using kinesiology to determine the vibrational number of each different emotional state. And joy was at 540. If enlightenment is at 700, peace at 600, joy is 540. So it gives you that buoyancy, right? When you connect to joy, it gives you that buoyancy. It lifts you up, right? And you begin to see all the patterns that pull you out of the joy. You begin to see all the ways that your ego, your mind, the small self begins to pull you away from joy into a whole other world of gloom. So we have that power to become observant witnesses of our own inner world, knowing that we have the power to cultivate joy, to tap into it, to bring it forth, to share it with the world, right? Because it's so contagious and so incredible. If you want to feel better, you want to be around other people who are in the frequency of joy. If you want to find clarity around your gifts, around your purpose, around where we're heading as a planet, be around people for whom joy is their natural state, because they have found a way to tap into it and to cultivate it. So in one way, how we lose joy, it's self-created, right? We lose joy when we begin to distance ourselves from it, and we begin to listen to the voice of the ego. The number one kind of a signature of the egoic voice is complaining, right? Yeah, nothing is good enough. Nothing is good enough, For example, you can have a healthy body, speaking from my own example, healthy body, but if my body puts a few pounds, right, I hear the egoic voice, oh my goodness, I don't feel joyful in my body. And of course I want to get stronger and agile, feeling more lighter, but that's not the whole point. Can I find joy no matter what body I'm in, no matter what chapter I am in, no matter who I am with? The number one way how we lose joy is when we begin to judge the chapter that we're in. That's the number one cause of human dissatisfaction, is to not be okay exactly where you at, because there is this false belief system that says if I am okay with where I'm at, it means I'm gonna lose my drive, I'm gonna lose my sense of ambition or desire or vision to go further. It's actually quite the opposite. The more you soften your edges, the more you let go of resistance to where you're exactly at, the more easy you can tap into joy of being. And that joy of being is like a life raft. It's like a buoyancy that lifts you up and gives you strength to meet your life, to meet a partner that you live with, to meet your children, to meet your aging elderly parents who need a lot of care. You feel like, why me? Why all these things that I need to carry in my shoulders? And life becomes more and more complex. And life pulls me in many different directions. How can I feel joy? Yes, you can, my friend. But it first begins with overcoming and transforming that human tendency to feel dissatisfied with where you're at. And I work with so many entrepreneurs over years. Number one reason they lose momentum in their business, they start feeling dissatisfied. They start feeling bored. Bored with their message, bored with their offerings, bored with opportunities, right? And that boredom takes you away from your magnetism. And it's up to you to find a way to reignite your fire and to say, I am so grateful I'm alive. I'm so grateful today I have the gift of speech. Today I can see. Like I always put things in perspective for myself. Very stoic philosophy. So many people misunderstand Stoicism. They think Stoicism is a philosophy that says be emotionless. Nothing is further from the truth. Stoic philosophy is a philosophy of objectivism. It's a philosophy of giving yourself a reality check and not being afraid to see the truth in the mirror of that reality check. So a Stoic mentor, if you were studying in ancient Greece with a Stoic teacher, a Stoic teacher would say, if you lose your sight today, if you're unable to see, can you still feel joy and gratitude for your life? That's what Stoic philosopher would offer you. And you would say, of course not. I would be miserable. I would get depressed. I would start war with the divine. I would complain to the divine how unfair it is. I need my eyes. And a Stoic philosopher would say, yeah, sure, fair. And then how would you get out of the situation? And a student of Stoicism eventually would arrive to this understanding. The only way to transform a situation of strong intensity is to find new meaning. And to assign a new meaning to whatever you're moving through. And when you assign the new meaning, you lift yourself up. And you begin to bow down to the chapter that you're in. Right? You assign new meaning. And that's how you can touch to that original joy. Recently I've been sharing a lot of photos about my new life of, being deeply in love with an incredible man, right? With whom I have passionate, purposeful, and peaceful spiritual union. But before I met him and before I recognized him, right, as a very incredibly aligned partner for me, I walked solo for 10 years. For 10 years, right? And during those 10 years, there were many moments where I deeply yearned for union. I was telling Divine Mother and the universe, I'm ready. Why do you make me wait? I am ready. And there's so many amazing men. And there's so many amazing men who are available, but none my heart recognizes as the one for me. Divine Mother, why do you make me wait? And, if I knew that the chapter was 10 years long, the waiting would be even harder. So by the grace of the divine, we often do not know how long a particular chapter will run for us. Because if we knew how long a particular chapter would be, maybe our mind would collapse in defeat. But by the grace of the divine, we're told, learn to love you now. Learn to love you now. So in those 10 years when I was in a relationship with myself, I had experienced so much. I had this incredible spaciousness in my life to dedicate to my mystical studies, to channel my creativity, to be so devoted to this one path, the path of my Dharma, the path of creativity. I was really channeling the Saraswati spirit. And You know, what helped me go through that chapter is learning to adopt that mindset of loving the chapter I was in. And I was telling myself, you're not going to be in this chapter forever. You're going to be in this chapter for a time. And then comes a time where completely new geometry, completely new adventure. And if you're not gonna learn how to love the chapter that you're in, you're gonna take that attitude and move it into a chapter of relationship. And very soon you will be dissatisfied. So it's really important to learn to love the chapter you're in because you take yourself everywhere you go. You know, I remember in the beginning of my spiritual journey, um, I had this pattern. It's just only later I've learned that it's a pattern called trauma, like a trauma response. I had a pattern of it being really addicted to work. So I didn't know that's what was happening, but I was very addicted to work. I had deep satisfaction to going out there and making money and feeling productive and crushing my goals. And addiction, the sign of addiction is you don't know how to stop, right? Any addiction, you meet a lot of your needs through this one thing, right? So for me, I didn't know how to relax, and I would go on vacation. So I would travel to Italy, I would travel to Spain, but I took my workaholic self with me. And when I was there, if I didn't feel productive, I felt restless. I couldn't be present. I was standing in front of the most beautiful cathedral. I was looking at the most beautiful full moon, but only a fraction of me was there. My mind was spinning, thinking I am not being productive. I should have been working this time. So this is a sign, right, of a personality or a psyche that has not learned the joy of loving the chapter that you're in. And if we don't learn that, we are never going to experience true peace, right? And we take ourselves everywhere we go. So the very first thing, how to tap into that joy, if you are going through the process of spiritual dark night of the soul, I know this is not easy to do, and I'm going to plant a seed. Can you learn to accept that the cycle of death and birth is the most organic cycle of life? Can you learn to love your death, that inner shedding, just as much as you welcome and celebrate life? That's an advanced curriculum, I know. And I am being asked by Divine Mother to learn to love those times where it looks like nothing is happening. Everything becomes still. And my dynamic self wants to move into action and make things happen, but the Great Spirit says, no, this is the time for you to learn to value being, to learn to value stillness, to learn to value, to see yourself that you are not just a person of action, you're also a person of presence. And that's a curriculum. That's a real advanced curriculum, right? So, darlings, 100 ways to tap into joy. Give yourself this experiment, of every single day reminding yourself that joy is what you were born with. And if it helps you, write it on a big piece of paper. Joy is my original state. I was born with joy. And if you don't believe me, go spend some time with the newborn. Go spend some time with the 2-year-old, 1-year-old, and look at their faces. There's 2 key emotions: curiosity and wonder, and the smile that never leaves, right? Provided that those kids are sane and their basic needs are covered. And that's what we are. That's who we are. So to find joy, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter who is in the government, no matter what is happening, all of that can take away your peace if you let it. But welcome to planet Earth, planet of contrast and duality, planet of, playful limitation, an opportunity to develop unshakable inner mastery that is independent on anything external. In that lays peace, in that lays lasting joy. If you found value in this video, please share it with somebody who would love to see it. This was Katerina's story. I'm going to post it on YouTube, on Instagram, and it's going to be briefly for 30 days on Facebook, because Facebook deletes live streams after 30 days. So, my dear friend, joy is that incredible, beautiful frequency that makes you magnetic, that makes you happy and content for no reason. It's gladness that is independent of anything external. And it's right here. It's always been right here. But now you know how to tap into it. Enjoy experimenting with this.